Committee Thursday, October 15th meeting will come to order.
Ron's here.
Mr. Zweig, having made it almost on time.
There we go.
We have our quorum.
It's biking credits.
Yes.
He does. All right.
All right.
First item on the agenda is a...
You're not sitting next to Jerry.
Oh, no, you might want to sit over there.
Why not?
We don't want any fisticuffs.
As the committee and the public knows, we have been sort of initiating a number of shellfish initiatives, and the Division of Marine Environmental Services has been carrying them out as our partner. And they've more than taken the ball and run with it, and Chuck is here today to tell you what they have done and, more importantly, what they are hoping to do in the future in that field. So, Chuck Martinson.
Thank you very much for having me this afternoon. My goal is to hopefully update the committee on our work up to this point, and particularly our work this year, not only in Little Pond but also throughout the town, working with primarily oysters in that method of that was one of many methods that was chosen as a alternative. First off, the Little Pond project has been, up to this point, very successful. We've been able to grow, this year in 2015, we're able to grow 2 million oysters, which the average has reached a size of 1 1/4 inch. There are, however, a lot of animals that are much larger than that. Those measurements were taken from the first batch that we seeded off of last week. The program, I think in short, has been very successful with the residents in the town, not only the residents who are living on the pond, but also the residents who are harvesting the shellfish, who consist of both recreational and commercial harvesters. What we've done after we've grown these, as many of you know, and not to go through everything, but we've relayed them to different areas throughout the town, both to family and commercial areas. They've become very popular to the point that people are telling us where they'd like them. And on both ends, in a wide array, we've had people who were somewhat non-believers that oysters could grow in Little Pond fully come around and see that they can grow, and they can grow very well in Little Pond and in our estuaries in general. I think in broad terms, we've developed a practical, workable system to grow 2 million oysters from the size of a grain of sand to 1 1/4 inch. And there is a possibility to replicate this in other estuaries in the town. Our short-term goals for the division is to, first of all, continue the Little Pond project. It's been highly successful in our eyes. Certainly, I come to you, and I'm not going to be shy about it. The shellfish that we derive from the project has been wonderful. So for a number of different purposes, we will continue the project. We would like to evaluate this and implement possible similar growing programs over the next 12 months, possibly in another system. We would like to have the town establish the tone for oyster farming in our estuaries, specifically the neighbor use conflicts and the aesthetics, the operations and the end benefits and the density of growing oysters. We would like to quantify the carrying capacity of the town's estuaries for shellfish. How many harvestable sized oysters and cohogs can practically be bottom planted? It's one thing that's very important to us. And we also want to identify funding mechanisms to allow the propagation program to be budget neutral, which I think is very important. There's a number of different ways to look at that, possibly working with the private sector, also possibly looking at our licensing fees as well for shellfish licenses. The key bit of information that I seek from the Water Quality Management Committee is very simple, but somewhat drawn out. We need to know the number of shellfish to be grown in each estuary for water quality purposes and how much would need to be grown to benefit the town for that purpose and that purpose alone. I will look to the committee for that. We will provide information through myself and Sia, but that is something that is very important to us, and it's going to hopefully set some attainable goals for us to work with. I also want to go over some of the success metrics of our project. The survivability is very high, and the growth rates are above average in our ponds, in Little Pond up to this point. So certainly growing in other ponds nearby, we're interested to see if they perform at this level, but they perform extremely well in Little Pond. The program has been successfully managed to deal with issues such as low oxygen events and salinity fluctuation. This past year, we were able to identify a low oxygen event in the midst of it happening. So part of the oysters that we had were left in the northern section of the pond to see how they would do up there if they could sustain a hit like that of basically low oxygen. In the southern end of the pond, where we have observed the event start to take place, we had observed finfish coming to the surface, gulping for air, that grayish water, the smell, everything that comes along with that event. And it was really, from my perspective, a learning opportunity because we were able to take a snapshot of it and do something about it. So we moved a portion of the oysters, approximately 3/4 of them, to the southern end of the pond, into the area that we had designated as our emergency area to move shellfish towards if something were to happen. And then we left approximately 25% of them in the northern end of the pond. The results of that were that the ones in the northern end of the pond actually lived. They did fine, and the ones in the southern end of the pond obviously did well. We learned a little bit more about that secondary growing area, that we can be more effective actually in growing in that southern area because we don't need to use boats to manage our gear. We can manage it with chest waders, which cuts our time in half, which speaks to other things that we're going to need to look into gear and other possibilities later on down the road. The oysters that are ultimately harvested are also very high quality. They are singles. They're of the most value. They're beautiful animals. When time allows, we tumble them. So they're being handled just like any farm, any private farm would handle them. The neighbors have been very supportive of the operation. Tell a quick story. Paul Afsa was in the northern end, and I had to break the news to him that we had to move the shellfish, some of them out of there. It was a pretty sad day for him. They had been in his backyard for a number of years each summer. But we moved them to Brockton Street, and at the end of Brockton Street, I call Bob Chase, the Paul Afsa of Brockton Street, because he lives virtually in the same house and has grown the same love for these shellfish in his backyard, and his grandkids love it. He reports the water clarity improving better than he's ever seen it there. And he's been there for a number of years. So he's also highly supportive of this. Obviously, when we moved those into that secondary area, we were a little apprehensive because we hadn't farmed that area, but we were more than open arms, met with open arms down there. One of the most important parts of this to us is that the local shellfishermen are able to harvest shellfish and make money from it. And the families also enjoying the renaissance and the ability to collect shellfish. We were able to produce enough oysters last year that in West Falmouth Harbor, at the end of the season, we're fearful that we could have a significant ice event, which, as you all know, we did have a significant ice event. We petitioned the Board of Selectmen to actually allow the commercial diggers to come in to the family area because there were so many oysters in our family area that the family diggers could not possibly harvest them prior to winter. So we had the commercial guys come in. They were able to get their limits for a number of weeks on end. And There are, and we have just reseeded that area from last year with another 500,000 or so last week. So that area is back up and running, and we're excited for that. That concludes the little pond piece. I would like to also briefly touch upon, if I could, the work that's been done in West Falmouth on the reef that we're working on over there. A number of years back, the town had applied for, but not received funding through the Buzzards Bay Bouchard B120 oil spill, through the funding over there, to create essentially a reef that would be at the Mashanpatquid Creek Bridge. I'm not sure the exact name for that bridge, but it's at the bridge right there. And the goal is essentially to have a reef that would exist there that would operate as a spawning sanctuary for other oysters in the area, and also to have a set of oysters out there that would be spawning for that purpose only, and also to derive the nutrient benefits as well from the reef. We were not funded, however, as a town, we continued to forge forward. Last year, the way our system works is we do test bags. We do an initial pilot where we put out bags. Matt Weeks last year put out a number of bags in the area. We determined where they would do the best. We were able to, from that this year we set out 500 bags of remote set oysters in the area. And with the assistance of Sia and her husband, we were able to bottom plant those.
And volunteers. We had
And
two
volunteers,
two
yep. We had
kids
some
who
vol-
needed
yep.
volunteer hours that they
Yep.
helped them.
We were able to bottom plant those, and they also grew in that first year to a size of 1 1/4 inch, which is the last measurements that were taken. We're obviously not totally through our growing season yet, so we could get more growth on them as well. We've applied for a grant for that area to expand that to 1,500 bags for next year and 1 acre. And that would be one of the first things that we'd look at, in addition to also evaluating other estuaries in the next 12 months and working with WHOI to evaluate some of our other water quality improvements. I know that was a bit fast and rapid. There's a lot to it. I don't want to bore you with too much, but I don't want to leave you without enough. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Matt?
Yeah, Chuck, when you say oyster reef in West Falmouth Harbor,
Yep.
how did you make that? Was that actually
Right.
piles of mulch or?
Yeah, so essentially it was mulch that was purchased through the county, through ARC, which was remote set mulch. And we will continue purchasing mulch next year to add on to that. And we also have a very large supply of our own mulch, which we will set in there during the spawn, which has been donated from Chad's stuffed quahogs. All of his shell has been donated to the town for mulch, and we have a pile that's about the volume of about a fourth of this area in this room. It's huge. So we have the ability on that end to catch more of that set.
Great, so that's off limits.
It is, yeah. That's
just for
actually,
spawning.
yeah. So that's in an area that's actually
Great.
closed to shellfishing and has been closed for a number of years to shellfishing. The reef model kind of follows the NOAA model of spawning sanctuaries, which there's a lot of value in doing things that way. You're
Great.
increasing your spawning animals.
Ron?
No, just a couple things. Thanks, Chuck, that was great. I understand that there were some new sets, like last year's seeding in Green Pond, at the bottom, that you found that there was a population, is that right, of sets that happened? In other words, there was there was more oysters in Green Pond than we
Some
put in.
volunteers.
Sure, so I can explain what happened in there. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay.
So one thing that we did learn from this is the way we had been operating is we would have two areas. So for instance, in Green Pond, we had the southeast side and the southwest side. And the initial model was to seed one side and then seed the other side while the other side was open. So it was, for purposes of rotating our crops, essentially. What we found, though, is that there are some animals that are runts that were not making size, and it was a very small amount, but they were actually not making size. And so the third year, the beginning of the third year, they were making size, and you didn't want to seed over them. So the ones that you saw that we had moved last week, you might have seen that, we moved a boatload of 3.5 inch to 4 inch oysters, which were the ones from the year prior. We moved them with volunteers, and we actually made another reef, which is right up next to the bridge in Green Pond, and I will forward along the video. It's literally a video of a reef that goes on for about a minute where I'm just walking in there. I mean, they're that deep, it's unreal. That area will be open to harvest right around Christmas time, probably about 2 weeks before Christmas. We're going to open that up mainly so that they'll be there for recreational harvest. People will be able to walk right in and get them right out of the parking lot there, so it'll be nice.
But, okay, but
There was no, those were not animals that were spawned. No.
They were leftovers
They
from
could
last
not.
year.
It would be impossible for them to have grown to that size.
Okay,
Yeah.
they were just runts that suddenly
We
got
actually
there.
found some from our pilot program, which was 3 years ago,
Right.
when we do our pilot, that were literally like this big. They were huge. I mean, they're the biggest oysters I've ever seen in my life. And to know that they were 3 years old and that big, I mean, they were huge. I'm not joking when I say they were that
This
big.
is like a fish story.
Yeah, it's really not. I'll bring them in.
It's hard.
I'll go get some.
Yeah, a foot
You just,
long.
if I bring them in, you better eat them. All right?
Are they edible that big?
They are. I mean, they're certainly. I would say that the market is certainly the commercial market is more on the 3 inch. They've opened up a petite market for 2.5 inches out of state, so the smaller is certainly more in more demand.
Yeah, just another thing was last year you had this great opening, right? And the public came and everything. Are you doing that again this year, or?
We're doing something a little different this year. We've been trying to work with volunteers on the other end of it, of actually the hands-on end. And I think every other year, we're going to make it essentially a 2-year project. 1 year, we will have the public help us doing hands-on, working the farm. And then the next year, hopefully, we'll actually have the opening so they can actually enjoy them. There was a tremendous amount with us taking it over this year of our time taken up with that end of it. So it's basically come down to hours and the days. So the short answer is no, we're not going to this year.
Right, but can they be harvested now?
Sure can, yeah. They can be harvested right now.
Do we know where they are?
West
Or-
Falmouth,
West Falmouth
in the family area.
same area as last
Nope.
year?
No, there's a set of green buoys that we put out over there.
Okay,
Landward of the green buoys, if you stand on the Chappaquiddick Bridge and you look towards Chappaquiddick Beach, you'll see about 12 buoys, green
Okay.
buoys.
Uh-huh.
So to the green buoys to the left side,
Okay.
Saturdays and Sundays.
okay, so it's basically, instead of going left, you go right?
Correct.
From that point?
Exactly.
That we did last
Yeah.
year?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then we seeded that other area last week, so that'll
Right.
be October 1st, 16.
Is it open now?
Yeah, sure is on
Oh,
weekends, yeah.
okay.
Steve?
You mentioned wanting to know the quantities that we think we need to clean up the estuaries, but which I'm sure Lucia or someone can get you. But then you also mentioned moving the oysters because of the anoxic event.
Yep.
I think it's true that you'll find that position matters as well as quantity.
Position in the system or position?
Position in the estuary.
Location.
Upstream.
Location.
Location.
Oh, okay, all right. So in other words, on the amount needed, depending on where they are in the system.
Right, in other words, if they're at the mouth,
Yeah.
they're not doing you much good. It's unfortunate. The place where it's easy to grow them,
Yeah.
they don't do much good. The
Yep.
place where it's hard to grow them is where you'd
Yeah.
like to.
But again, the reason why we had that safety area there
Oh, you had to do it. I'm
Was-
just saying, if you're planning on the basis
Oh,
of
right,
moving
by all means,
nitrogen.
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not
Or
just
there might
quantity.
be an area in the middle that would work
Right.
on both ends.
Even though the ones you left there survived.
Yeah, they did
Well,
great. We learned other
this
things
time.
this time, yeah. I mean, we you know, those were larger animals, so they're more resistant to anoxic events, and they're just no different than any other animal. You know?
And I also had some
So-
couple, go ahead.
They can actually change their metabolism under
Sure.
those conditions. Oysters are kind of able to do that, so that's another, they're tough. They're pretty resilient, so.
Sure are.
Yeah, Steve?
At our last meeting, there was an applicant for a commercial license. Does that still look like a good idea to you?
Well,
A feasible idea?
I think some level of working with the private sector could be helpful. I think what I would caution putting the cart before the horse. You know what I mean? We need to figure out what our estuaries need, what a target is for our estuaries, and then we can go from there. Be doing it backwards to do it any other way.
And you also mentioned revenue neutral. When does that start? Does that mean?
Just putting the cart before the horse again.
Oh. And then I was.
Our goal, my hopes are is that next year at this time, or perhaps even earlier than that, in 6 or 7 months, maybe we can come with actual hard numbers. That, one way or the other, however things could work, we'd be, willing to come forward with numbers and possible ideas that we could push forward and onto the committee for consideration and feedback, so.
And my last question is,
Sure.
I think I just misheard you. I thought I heard you say there was family harvesting in Little Pond, but I thought Little Pond was closed.
No family harvesting.
West Falmouth.
West Pond.
Falmouth, yep.
Any other kind? Jerry? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, as I said, we should tell you how much nitrogen we need. I think it would be better to say, what's the maximum reasonable amount of oysters you could plant
Okay.
and work from there. I mean, because it maybe they'll be the same.
Right. Good point.
Virginia?
Mine is sort of a follow-on to what Jerry said. In looking at what's the maximum we would put there, do we need in each pond to have an emergency area set aside?
I think, with the flood tide delta that exists inside Bourne's Pond, that's our limiting factor, in my opinion.
I mean, Little Pond?
I'm sorry, in Little Pond. Yeah, in Little Pond. I don't think so. No, I do not feel that we would need a safety area like we would in Little Pond
Okay.
as much. No, I really don't.
So Great Pond, Green Pond.
So in a place like Great Pond or Green Pond, I really don't feel that we
You
would
don't
need
look at- okay.
as much of a safety net.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Any other comments or questions from the committee? Let me just give our visitor from the Enterprise a global picture. You might have thought you walked into the Shellfish Committee. This is only one of many things that this committee does, all of which are designed to reduce the nitrogen in the estuaries. This particular experiment started a couple of years ago, where we get a lot of little oysters and grew them in Little Pond and took them to other places. The premise being oysters eat algae which are fed by the nitrogen, and it clears the water up, and it has a measurable, demonstrable effect. And we're trying to do as much of it as we can in as many estuaries as we can. But this is where we are today. Paul?
May I ask a question, please?
Sure. In fact, give the man a microphone, if you don't mind. Just our nationwide TV audience wants to hear you.
Being televised. I wouldn't have raised my hand. Paul Dreyer, I'm the representative of the Planning Board to this committee. I had a question. The Oyster Symposium is ongoing right now, and yesterday Ron had a presentation of this project to that international body. I'm curious what kind of reaction they had, or what kind of influence would they have on a project like this?
Well, I expect it to be tremendous, but it hasn't happened yet.
It's
Oh,
next week, right?
It's next week.
Thank you for saying so.
Wednesday.
No, Wednesday next week.
I said, I think I'm supposed to be there.
I missed my conference.
All right, so you're all on notice. There's a oyster.
Call the cardiologist.
Next week.
Right, well, actually, there'll be two presentations on this. One will, Brian House will be getting into the nitty-gritty of some of the water quality issues, and I'll be giving kind of a overview with the touching on that, of how we did it and how it's been received and what the basic concept is from our committee and other viewpoints. So it's sort of that type of thing.
be interested to see a reaction, because there's similar experiences elsewhere.
Well, I organized, actually, it's changed a bit, but I organized the experience from Cape Cod, and that involved Wellfleet with the oyster reefs and Mashpee and the Wampanoag interest as well, and Falmouth, and so those will be spread through it. So there's quite a bit of work being done with regard to using shellfish for water quality management. I think a lot of it's actually started in Chesapeake, and there will be presenters from the Chesapeake who will be talking about that. So there's quite a bit. We're sort of in a greater pool of people and that are taking this strategy.
For the public's interest, where and when is this event?
It's in Woods Hole and at the Seacrest. So
Okay,
it's
and the dates?
The dates are the 20th to 23rd.
Is there a registration fee? That was
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah, pretty
hefty.
hefty one.
But it's a hefty.
$55?
Huh?
$55?
No, it's like
It's $300
almost
for
400.
it's
Yeah.
$300 for the conference, it's $145 for one day, and then it's $55 for the tasting,
Oh.
and another $55 for a comedy event in the evening. But the meat and potatoes of it is a 3-day conference for about $300 and something bucks.
Paul Poundstone speaking.
Really?
Comedian Paul Poundstone speaking. Right after you.
Well, that's hopefully I won't upstage
So you don't have to be funny.
I'll have to be pretty droll.
I just speaking for myself, Mr. Chairman, I just can't get over how successful this program has been. When we conceived of it, really had no idea of what we'd be able to do. It's just surpassed all of my expectations. I don't know about yours. I just think it's tremendous.
No, I think we've all been very impressed with how well it's gone, and the labor of love that on Sia's behalf and all the volunteers and your department making this come about. It's not a job for all of you. It's been a thing you really care about. And it means a lot to the town.
Mention Steve Fassett too. He helped out a lot.
Yes.
As well
There's
as
a
Ron.
number of people that have, right from the gear building at the initial, we have 2,600 bags, 2,800 bags.
3,000.
About 3,000
About
bags.
3,000 bags. It wasn't easy. And Steve Fassett was in the trenches. There were a lot of people that were really in the trenches. Ron's been there through all of it, so.
And the construction of the upwellers as well.
Yep. Sure.
At the harbor. My question has to do with, going back to your budget neutral. What are you figuring are the income pieces that will balance the expenses in your budget?
Sure.
When we finally get to...
Sure, there's a number of different options that you could look at. We need to see a few different things. First of all, what we can do over the winter with oysters. That's important for us because that's a game changer. If you can hold oysters over the winter, there's things that you might be able to do with them that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to. So there's still some questions that we need answered that will be answered in the next 4 or 5 months, hopefully.
Okay.
I have been working on it on my own for a while, and it will be something that we will absolutely bring it to the committee first for feedback. So you will hear back from me again shortly on that.
I hesitate to add, it's not our role to set fees in the town, but we can certainly give you
There are a number of different models that could work different ways, and we need to really kind of see which one benefits all the various interests.
Sure.
And that brings in commercial, that brings in the commercial harvesters, that brings in our aquaculturists and a lot of their struggles that they've had in estuaries, not in our estuaries, but in our open areas that have been somewhat difficult to grow in, and they've been limited by certain factors. It has to do with our family growth and the nutrients. So it needs to take all that into consideration, and after we consider all of that, then we can hopefully come up with a solution that best suits every aspect of it.
But I hear you saying that a back-of-the-envelope calculation or one in your head, which you
Not
don't
gonna
have
get
to
it.
divulge to us,
Not going to get it from me.
tells you that they're in the same ballpark, the expenses and the potential income. It's not like one is
There are,
obviously
I mean,
50
it
times
depends.
the other one. and
No,
way
there's
you
different
can
ways
work.
that you can go, and I'm not ready to go there yet. Because I mean, what we've
But
done
you
to you
think
up to this
you're
point is provide,
optimistic, though.
I'm very optimistic.
I think that, first of all, this isn't like an enterprise budget kind of thing that we're doing with the town, so that it has to look more globally. And that if we're able to remove 1,000 kilograms of nitrogen every year from an estuary, and that would cut down on the costs and other things, we can look at this, that it may be town budget that would be, because there would be a savings from other wastewater interventions that may be otherwise be required. So I think that just as you say, that we're at the beginning of this whole thing, and that as we start looking at that, there should be a possibility of looking at town
when we-
budget because of the savings side to.
When we put forward possibilities, I really want to, be able to have sturdy possibilities that are options that have all been well thought out prior to really bringing them forward. And when I say we've been, I mean, I've been very actively, pursuing that. So, and not only at our level, but also with discussions with the state about possibilities and much further than just on the back of an envelope,
Great.
which really.
Any other, Garrett?
Does Little Pond be open, let's say it was open to shellfish, and does that change that dynamics? I'm not sure the sewer intervention is going to open because of non-anthropogenic coliform coming in, but it's closed right now. If all of a sudden it was open, how does that change the dynamics?
Just by the letter of the law, how the division maintains, you wouldn't have it open until you could show a series of, I believe, eight tests for, I think, 5 years in a row, none of which are above the level. So, I mean, it's optimistic, but it's a ways out. So
Okay.
it's not a
Big
short-term
hurdle.
concern, yeah. I would love that to be a problem.
Okay.
Really, we all would.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions for Chuck? Thank you so much
Thank you.
for all
Thank
that
you,
you do. Update on West Falmouth Reef proposal kind of segues right into this.
Segues right in, that's why we did it. Let's turn the light off so we can see. And Cheryl Holmgren, I think, is here from Falmouth Water Stewards.
Yes. Yes, thank you for joining us.
Okay, so the good news is, and I think you all saw this, that the Water Quality Committee submitted The Water Quality Committee submitted a pre-proposal for the Southeast Massachusetts National Estuaries Project. We just like to call it SNEP because it's a much shorter name. And we're asked to submit a full proposal to build out the reef that Chuck talked about. This year we grew 500 remote sets. So Matt, to sort of follow up on that, the seed that we got was actually on shells. So we got oyster seed and it was on shells and we grew it out. This is a picture. I went on Monday with my underwater camera and took a couple of pictures of the reef that we bottom planted because it's really hard to see how they're growing. So I was absolutely thrilled to death to see that we put these in at the end of August, and there they are. And here's another picture, and what I think is interesting about this is that you can see some siltation, but it moves, so they're not getting covered over. When we planted them, we didn't just broadcast them, but we actually built little piles to try to keep everything above ground. So when Chuck talks about that culch that he's got, this just raw shell, the goal for next year would be to put the shell down to kind of elevate things a little bit and put this grown out seed that's on shells on top of it. And so the last picture I want to show you is,
What's the scale on it?
Yes, I was
well, I was just going to show you that oyster that you see boldly in front of you is 2 inches. That's a 2-inch oyster.
And what did it start as when you put it in?
Nothing. When we planted the remote set, this spat-on shell, it is totally an act of faith. All you have is a bag of clamshells. you don't see anything on it. You just look at a clamshell and you're like, the ARC told me there's seed on this, I'm just gonna believe them. And we threw them in bags, and if anybody goes over that Nashawina Bridge, you saw over the summer that there were floating bags, and we had 2 kids who needed summer volunteer time flipping the bags twice a week because they would get so it'd collect everything. But the flow is really good, and Chuck years ago identified this spot as a really good spot for a reef, and he was right. Chuck was right. I mean,
What causes this siltation?
the tide, there's a huge flow.
They're not boats or anything going?
No, there's no boats. Nope, just a few kayaks, but it's really just the water movement and the wave action. So to make a long story short, SNEP thought this was a great project, and they've asked us for a full proposal to build this out with 1,500 bags, more staff, and putting the culch down. So our fingers are crossed. The grant, the Finance Committee has endorsed this, submitting the grant, and hopefully will be on the Board of Selectmen agenda, if not this Monday, a week from Monday, to get their authorization to actually submit the grant, which is due November 2nd. Division of Marine and Environmental Services is the lead, and the Water Quality Committee is in there to review things the way Chuck will come in and try to incorporate the findings of this into our long-term comprehensive planning. Because the idea is, and the other really exciting piece of this project is that Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, in a complete serendipitous act, is monitoring right here for ocean acidification. So they've got people monitoring all the nutrient parameters plus factors related to ocean acidification. And we've been collaborating. I've been giving them the population. I've been doing population counts, how many, what size. On Saturday, we're actually going to go out and do transects to see exactly what area we planted and exactly what's growing in that area. So I think it's about 300,000 oysters that we have growing there, just from some preliminary analysis.
How many thousand?
300,000.
If you got this grant, how many would we be putting out there?
3 times as much as what we have now.
Million.
So 1 million.
Nice.
The idea is 1 million oysters, an acre reef.
1 acre reef?
1 acre. That's the goal of the grant.
How much money?
$50,000.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
And how does it work long-term? They grow.
They grow.
It gets bigger and bigger.
Yep.
That can't go on forever.
Well, you can't harvest it.
They get harvested.
Then you start harvesting.
Well, so there's that's a really good question. So naturally, things will control the size, and Ron can talk about this. They're not going to go to the moon. They get to a point where they've hit homeostasis. There are 2 things that are going to happen. One is there's going to be denitrification, which we're also measuring, or who is also.
The nitrogen from the water into the oyster.
Yes, and then there's going to be
Come out.
2 ways. One is the feces and the pseudofeces are going to get 3 ways. Feces and pseudofeces are going to get deposited, and that's going to create the denitrification cycle, so nitrogen's going to get outgassed, number 1. Number 2, other organisms are going to come in and eat the stuff that's on the reef and leave, taking away the nitrogen that was built in the reef. And the third is we're going to have to selectively harvest. And I think there's a plan to selectively harvest, say, the 4 or 5 inch oysters and figure out what to do with them. Either we put them in a different place for a reef because they're spawning organisms, and the spawn is very valuable, but we'll maybe use those to build out other spawning areas or depurate them or do what Chuck did at the Green Pond Bridge. But we haven't. There's a number of different ways. I think the first thing is we got to see how big they grow.
That's a very good answer.
Ron?
Now, it might be necessary too, because of the state laws the way they are, even though it's a closed area now because of coliform bacteria. If it works, it may then be open to shellfishing, because depending on what the state's thinking, because you can't really close off things unless the town determines, probably now, that this should be a sanctuary for this purpose of biodiversity enhancement and water quality.
Wellfleet, they have in fact set a precedent for having reef areas set aside as sanctuaries. So there is a mechanism.
Yes,
I believe,
they've done it. I was going to say the same thing.
So there's a mechanism for us to do that.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this one? It's going to the selectmen later on this month. And,
Yes, it is.
off we go. Okay. Okay, Great Pond Watershed Review.
Stay right where I am, trying to
Okay,
get the next
this is
PowerPoint.
one of the series of estuary by estuary reviews we have been doing in this committee. A little more than a back of the envelope kind of review, but quite a bit less than a full detailed review. But the premise in each estuary is for us to take a first crack at looking at what the situation is, what possible options among our toolbox might work in reducing nitrogen, and how much would it reduce, and what problems are left, how much would it cost. These are the kind of things we've been looking at, starting up at Megansett, and we've come all the way around to, now we're at Great Pond. We've got a couple more to go, but let's do Great Pond now.
We're going to do Great Pond now. And what we've found in the past is sometimes the maps aren't so clear, so we've got a printout of the watershed maps, so you guys can pass those around and look at them as we go. So we're going to start with Great Pond. Everybody knows that Great Pond is, of course, next to Little Pond. And Little Pond's a little one on the left-hand side. And Great Pond goes all the way up to Route 28. And I was really curious, so how many miles is that? Does anybody have any idea how far it is from the entrance to Great Pond to Route 28? Just a guess?
3 miles?
It's about, no, I think it's about 2 miles.
It's about 2.5 miles, so you're both right. 2.5 miles to get from one end to the other. So this is a very large water body, and the estuary, the watershed, is even larger. So this is a little confusing. I'm going to just stand. Well, I can't stand up here because nobody can hear me. Maybe you can see the blue line.
You can, the microphone, just stand with
Well, I'm just going to.
Do we have a pointer?
I'm going to do this.
There
See
might be
that
one.
that blue line right there is Route 28. This watershed goes all the way up to Joint Base Cape Cod. From scaling purposes, I couldn't make the map with Bob Shea showing that far corner because it would have shrunk everything down. But there's a little bit of a load that is assumed to come from the Ashumet plume that was part of Joint Base Cape Cod wastewater treatment facility. And what you're seeing here is the outside red line is the watershed. And then what SMAS does is they break it into sub-watersheds, which is actually very helpful. So for example, this area here that I'm kind of going in like this is the less than 10 years of travel time for the Great Pond lower watershed. This guy, this sort of teardrop, is Perch Pond's sub-watershed. This is the Coonamessett River watershed. That's a sub-watershed of Great Pond. And then you've got these other two that I don't remember the name of, but they go into these freshwater bodies that then go into Great Pond. So you can see that Great Pond has got a lot of influences from a lot of different places.
Your key says that the blue line is the lower watershed, which you usually mean is the less than 10 years or something. But then you said it was Route 28. It's unlikely that it's both.
So for planning purposes, we already have a CWMP that includes this. And when that was articulated, infrastructure boundaries don't always reflect natural boundaries. And in this case, you do have a difference between the environmental lower watershed and what for planning purposes is the lower watershed. And so for planning purposes, the CWMP talks about south of Route 28 and north of Route 28 as upper and lower. And so I was just showing that from a planning purpose, because it's much easier to plan at a highway than to try to go up.
But from a physical standpoint, it's sort of the first set of red lines that go across.
I'm going to drop. You watching the
Yeah.
pointer? See, I'm going here and here and here and then down around here. So everything, if you go from here,
that middle one.
well, that's Perch Pond.
If I
Yes,
could
but
jump in.
clearly
Yeah,
that
please
gets
do,
in.
Virginia.
If I could jump in here. The key distinction is the 10-year travel time. And so,
Right.
okay, so the 10-year
Still would
travel
include the
time,
Perch Pond.
it would include
yeah,
Perch
here
Pond,
we go.
absolutely.
Here, where we got? Where were we?
10
Good luck to me. Oh, I know what I'm doing. Now I'm switching. Well, no, I'm using something that I thought was a pointer that
I
isn't.
think on the back is the
Okay,
pointer button.
so in terms of our interest for travel time, 10-year travel time, it's everything from Mayor's Pond on down, and it includes that sub-watershed, sort of that teardrop in the middle.
Oh, now I've done it. Jerry's trying to help me here.
But in
Sorry.
terms of the information that has been publicized for the last 5-6 years, and the engineering information that was developed for, quote, the lower watershed, the boundary that GHD used was Route 28. And so that's why we have to make this distinction.
Right, so just to give you guys some context, the blue line is also Route 28, so you can see how much of Great Pond is influenced north, land area-wise, north of Route 28. So that was sort of another thing that was interesting. Okay, so how does the MEP report work? Well, they take a lot of samples, water samples, and do a lot of lab analysis of those samples in a lot of places, and these are the locations of the places where they do it. And then what they do is they take this real field data and they calibrate their hydrodynamic model, which is really just a water movement model, with this real information to see if the model is accurately representing reality. And I think it's really illustrative. They've taken a lot of samples here to see stuff, and our Sentinel station, which is what our TMDL, or our total maximum daily load for nitrogen, is based on, is right there in the middle. Like, they always put it right in the middle. GT5 is it. And I wanted to show you where it was in the context of all the sampling stations that they have done over the years. And there it is again, from a locational perspective. If you go down Mara Vista as much as I have last summer, you see Oak Street a lot. So Oak Street and Joyce Street on the other side are where that midpoint is of this from water quality. And what you can see is this is one of their model runs where you can see that the lower part of the estuary is actually not is not impaired. I mean, it's got really low nitrogen, but you start getting into that midsection around Oak Street and where the Lefebvre boat landing is, and you start to see water quality degradation, both by the model and by the numbers from the field monitoring stations. This is a familiar map that Steve would really like me to redo, so it was a little more clear, but I'm not redoing MEP. This is right from the report. Typical, local, the controllable load and the overall load is mostly from septic systems. In this case, there is a significant fraction from impervious surfaces, stormwater, which makes sense given its huge land area that we're talking about. We've got a wastewater treatment facility, and that again is from Joint Base Cape Cod, that is actually incorporated into any number from the Coonamessett River. All of that flow, according to USGS report, goes into the Coonamessett. So here are sources, nothing new or surprising here, but this helps us get to, okay, what magnitude of nutrient, of nitrogen reduction are we looking at to get from the present loading to the goal or the threshold load. When the MEP was done, it was Great, Green, and Bournes, so I've highlighted for us the Great Pond contributors. You know, Green Pond is different in Bournes and Israel. They happen to be in the same table, so I'm just showing you by, simple math. You take how many kilograms is going in now, you subtract what you'd like it to be, and then you get a target removal number in kilograms. Multiply it by 2 if you want to know what it is in pounds. 2.2. So these are the numbers, and what does it tell us? That between the Great Pond lower watershed system, all those little sub-embayments, including perch, plus all those that are part of the upper watershed, the Coonamessett River, all three of them, we're looking at about 12,000 kilograms of nitrogen from the controllable load that needs to be removed. And that translates, according to MEP, into a concentration of 4 milligrams of nitrogen per liter at that Sentinel station. So the next thing we do after we look at kind of have an overview of what is the problem, what is our task, what is our mission, what's the goal, is what are we doing? And in this particular watershed, there are some things that we've estimated based on work that's already been done. One is the Little Pond Sewer, because about 260 parcels of that sewer shed are in the Great Pond, at the divide of Little and Great Pond. And that's about 900 to 1,000 kilograms of nitrogen. If we take the 25% credit for our fertilizer bylaw, that we send letters out to, and we did actually justify in the Little Pond TMDL how that 25% is actually a rational, defensible number. we'd get another 400 kilograms. If we, by looking at stormwater best management practices, improved real storm drain systems to remove nitrogen, and we got 25% credit, which is what the 208 plan is setting as a goal, we get another 600 kilograms. So with these estimated measures, we've got 2,000 kilograms. Well, okay, so we've started. And then the next set of alternatives, which are proposed that we've been working on, are a PRB at Shorewood Drive. And we've got 2 different ways to evaluate what kind of nitrogen removal. And this to me was stunning. Steve did a calculation, which was based on some really sensible metrics. And then I used Watershed MVP, which I think I've told you guys about, is the tool that the Cape Cod Commission, where I can draw a polygon for what's happening upstream of a certain length of PRB. And darn, the numbers were the same. They both came out with a 300-foot PRB would be removing about 460 kilograms of nitrogen a year. I mean, a 100-foot would be 400, and a 300-foot. You see, I did my own math wrong.
Steve was off by 5.
or MVP is off by 5.
Maybe MVP was off. Yes.
Okay, so we've got 1,400 kilograms potentially coming from that PRB that Virginia's going to update us on in a little while. Next up is oysters and shellfish, oysters or quahogs in Great Pond. This was one of the water bodies that Matt Weeks and I had actually surveyed, and Chuck and I have talked about. And although we don't have an exact number for the carrying capacity, we think that there's probably 5 acres that you could grow shellfish in. Some of the concerns for shellfish actually in Great Pond is that a lot of people swim. So Chuck is concerned about people cutting their feet and doesn't want to propagate oysters where they're really active beach areas in the summer. So quahogs might be a really good alternative because they don't cut anybody's feet. Yet there are still areas in the upper mid part of the watershed that are fine that nobody uses. So shellfish, and this was really a planning number. I think we could do more. We might be able to do less. It really depends. But for planning purposes, at the level that we're having this conversation, I think it's a fair number to have as a target, and then a reef. Again, the way we did it in West Falmouth, because it's working so well.
I haven't digested all these numbers yet, but can you talk about the aquaculture versus the reef as a trade-off? If you had a fixed area, one's got to be better than the other one.
So,
For just removal, then you have social and political and economic factors.
well,
But
so the thing about a reef is that it's an ecosystem. And the density is high per unit area because they're all clumped together. The downside is you have to figure out how to harvest it. With the singles, the oyster aquaculture, if you can bottom plant, you can get a pretty high density, but then they're gone and you're not creating structure and you're not creating an ecosystem. So I think we're still looking at both of those, and I'm actually very excited to be going to this conference next week because there are people talking about that.
Just using the numbers you have here, which nobody can escape from because they're up on the wall.
Sure, the reef, is getting you a little bit more.
I just want to, and Sia probably can confirm this, but the reef actually acts to denitrify aside from the oysters as well.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know it probably hasn't been measured, but it's
Working on it.
It is significant.
Species that chew on it.
Yeah, the species come in and out, you're absolutely right, but the singles probably create denitrification too. So the bottom planted singles. I don't have a,
If I can answer his question, 1 million oysters or quahogs per acre gave you 260 kilograms and 3 inches. Flip down to the reef, you have 2 acres with 1 million per acre.
So they're about the same.
So, right, so 1 million per acre is 250.
Yeah.
2 acres.
Yeah.
So they're just about the same.
at the same size.
Yes.
If the reef got to be 4 inches, they'd be doing more.
That's
So that's where the trade-off really is. If you could
So
let,
it's a close race, so you've
It's
a
got to
close-
look at them
I
right.
don't know, Ron, what do you think?
and you can also say, since it's a close race, it doesn't matter who wins.
Well, it gives you room
It's
to
also
solve the other
self-propagating,
the other issues, aesthetics, access, cutting feet.
The one thing though is that we're not including denitrification in this, right?
No.
No,
So that's
not
the
yet.
thing. It's just the,
Meat and
goes
shell.
into growth, and that could change radically, both for the aquaculture and the reefs. Anyway, but it is something to, to play with, another thought experiment here.
And it's a conservative number, I mean,
The one, except for the one thing that I wonder about is the Shorewood Drive PRB. And based on what we know, we have the model, which is MEP. But then we have our actual measurements that so far are what they are. For whatever they're worth, they are what they are. And that's 140 kilograms, as I recall, per 5,000 linear feet.
well, look at Steve's numbers.
I know, but that's from MEP.
No, it was from the numbers.
No, Steve took it from our actual numbers.
Those are our actual numbers.
But how do you get, for 300 feet, if you have 140 kilograms for 5,000 linear feet, 50 feet deep, how do you get this high number for 300 feet?
I don't know where your number came from.
Now, I'm saying that in the Begley report, for 5,000 linear feet, 50 feet deep, that transect,
5,000.
Not 5,000.
it was 5,000. In
5,000
his report, it was 140 kilograms of
But Ron,
nitrogen
these
migrating.
are the numbers that we're developing at the site that we're talking about.
Right, exactly. And that's what's in the report.
So you're talking about the lower, his numbers, and I don't think those are right, and we shouldn't talk about
But
it.
this is what
It's the
this is
next
what we
item-
have.
Next item on the agenda, I think.
Well,
Yeah.
but he's drawing up a number I can't remember.
Yeah, well,
I don't have.
From a
And those were
previous-
numbers from
I have it,
the,
and I can pull the report up and show it to you.
but those were numbers from the lower peninsula. These are numbers from the upper peninsula, and
No,
the
this-
concentration at the 28 is much higher.
But the question of where you were going to put this thing is,
Right,
is
exactly,
key
that's the
issue,
point. But where they were measuring, which is in that Shorewood Drive area, right?
which made it not sensible to put it there.
No, it does, it is,
And the Begley report was very preliminary, one
Right.
sample. Begley report
It's the
was
only
a
sample we
snapshot.
have, so.
Well, you don't
Except
use
for-
garbage.
In
Thank
terms of the positioning of a PRB, further up, it was like 12.5 milligrams per liter and 12.5 milligrams per liter from USGS up near 28. And then when you come down to the study area, it dropped to 1.2. So things could be happening from 28 down to that point. We don't know. More studies going to be done, Virginia. I think we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But what we have then from that is this may be very optimistic in terms of, if you use MEP, that's one thing, but until we get that more data,
Right.
we have to get more
Absolutely.
data. So this is,
Absolutely.
again, a thought experiment.
Exactly.
It's sort of
These are
like
thought
going in all
experiments.
direct,
Yeah.
grabbing things from different places that we have.
Right.
But this could be, instead of 1,400 kilograms from 300 feet, it would be a real small fraction of that, would be 1/5 of 100, it would be about 30, roughly.
and if we
So,
added denitrification to the shellfish,
Based on-
we get more.
I was
Right.
just doing the back of the envelope calculation. I had no idea what was going to appear on the slide. I have no objection.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Well,
Thank you.
but
wait,
so-
let me just.
oh.
It's good
But
when arithmetic
It was my
matches
intent just to
models.
see if it was ridiculously low or incredibly good.
Right.
It turns out, like the two below, and the sake of my other comment, that they're all reasonable.
Yeah.
So you have to keep, in fact, actually to change the aquaculture versus the reef, since they're so close, it makes sense to pursue studies on both of them and stay diversified.
Right.
Because weird things could happen to either one.
That's what we're doing.
That's all we're doing. Now, this is all the good news. The next slide is,
Before we move on, can I just,
Yeah.
one of the benefits which we keep skipping over with the oysters is they filter an enormous amount of water.
Clarity.
And so water clarity, wherever we can get oysters, and if these permanent reefs work out well, they're going to clarify an enormous amount of water. And that's a huge secondary benefit to us.
Just a quick follow-up.
Sure.
And in Wellfleet, they said even if there's a die-off of the oysters in the reef, the nitrogen removal continues because it's of the other organisms that inhabit the reef.
So the reef's a little bit more hardier than the
Yeah.
individual aquifers.
Yes.
that's interesting.
And the oysters that come back to the reef are even partner
right.
because they survived the,
Right.
Just one question I had about I think the earlier slide was that if you look at that rainbow chart in the MEP report, just based on that, it talked about wastewater, and about 12,000 kilograms was coming down the Coonamessett River.
I'm going to get to
And
that.
We're
about
coming to that.
50%. Oh, okay. And then other, okay.
All right,
That's
so
the
that's-
next slide.
So,
Well, I
so
haven't
what
seen
we've
the
got
slides,
here,
but
well,
I'm
that's
figuring
why
out ahead of
I'm,
time.
so
Well, that's where you
so
can
the
do it.
reduction goal, right, is 12,000. You know, between the estimated and the proposed measures that we just walked through, we're getting about 5,000 kilograms. So where are we at? We've got about 7,000 kilograms left to go. The first thing I noticed, and Ron noticed it too because he reads this stuff pretty carefully, is the Coonamessett River is producing 22.63 kilograms per day, dumping it right in at Route 28. The Coonamessett River, and this is right in the MEP report, it's collecting from the whole upper watershed. It's going through cranberry bogs, and at Route 28, you can see it. I've watched it so many times. Every time I go by there, I stop and I watch the Coonamessett River. It's all going in right there. And if you,
what do you mean, road runoff?
no, the river,
The river
the
itself.
river. We're gonna,
On to the ocean.
the river is collecting, so groundwater takes the path of least resistance, and it's all going in. And so there's, I'm not sure if I have, yeah, there's the table from the MEP report that what they did is tide gauges and they did a stream gauge. And they said, okay, what's the, cubic meters per day, and what's the nitrogen concentration, and what's the nitrate concentration, and from that number, they did it for Bournes Brook, for Bacchus Brook, and Coonamessett River. And that's when we were talking, Matt, yesterday to the collaborative about the replicability of the Munich-Quashnet study. Here's 3 more estuaries that have a kind of a similar form factor. But getting back to the Coonamessett River, what I did is I looked at the nitrate, and if you could remove the nitrate alone, that would be 5,400 kilograms per year. If you could somehow get a percentage of the Coonamessett River nitrogen content. Watershed MVP, I did my little polygon and saw what they assume the contributing nitrogen is to the river, and that was, again, 5,000, 5,500, 5,400, 5,000, about 5,000 kilograms a year coming right in from that river. You want to put a filter there. The other thing to note is that the water volumes during the MEP study were 60% of the long-term averages of the USGS, so the numbers could be higher. And there's been changes in land use. So there's been discontinued cranberry farming, but additional development,
That's more nitrogen.
more or less. If
Cranberry
it's,
bog should have taken out nitrogen.
if there should be less, if the
Some.
They put on a lot of them ammonia.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
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 So,
It was very-
Yeah.
we're not sure at this point what the,
But that's
And-
the detail, but your point is it's a huge number.
It's a
The
huge
thing
number.
is, how do you get rid of it?
yes, and that's why I'm bringing it up.
But the MEP report says 11,235 kilograms is coming per year, is coming down the Coonamessett.
Is that attenuated or
wastewater.
unattenuated?
That is the end loads by input, and it says 11,235 end load. I don't know if it's what's coming in, and that's from the Coonamessett River. So that is about half of the wastewater load coming in the lower watershed.
Are you looking at the left side of the rainbow?
Yeah.
Are you looking at the rainbow? You have to go to the attenuated load. There's 50% attenuation in the streams. And so I'd want to just offline kind of confirm that, but I'm looking at attenuated loads. And so these are the attenuated
load
loads.
is 9,500.
Okay, so 9,500 is the attenuated load.
Right, that's what it says, attenuated, that's what
Okay,
you're.
so if you do the
asking
numbers
about.
by what's coming in from here,
Without build-out.
without build-out,
With build-out, it's
higher.
11,500.
Okay, so yeah, I'm not looking at build-out loads.
Which is consistent with your using just the nitrate coming out of 5.
Right.
Yeah, but the
So-
nitrate, the ammonia will change to nitrate.
Just to put it in numbers that people will recognize, the Coonamessett River in June discharges about 4 million gallons per day, and in March, about 9 million gallons per day. So it fluctuates a lot with season, but it's a huge amount. So the whole Falmouth watershed, all of our watersheds together, discharge about 55 million gallons a day to the various water bodies around
Whoa.
Falmouth. And so this Coonamessett River is a pretty good percentage of the total
Go back.
discharge from the Sagamore lens
So,
in Falmouth.
going,
So those are the numbers, that Coonamessett River is the present load is the 22.63, so multiply that by 365. That's what the present load is coming from the Coonamessett River. Anyway. Anyway, let me just finish up here. So the other part of this, so we looked at, okay, if you could figure out how to do something with the Coonamessett River and all of these rivers, it would be a significant hit to the goal. It would be a significant positive removal. And then you've got IA systems. If we looked at IA systems, just as, how many properties and what kind of concentrations, and if you look at the entire upper watershed, this is watershed MVP. Draw the polygon, tell them 12 milligrams per liter. If you put IA systems in all the upper watershed, you'd get 7,000 kilograms. And if you put all the lower watershed, you'd get about 4,500 kilograms. So these were just to wrap it up, some numbers on IA systems, kind of the way we did with the targeted plan for Little Pond.
And for the public, say what an IA system
Sorry,
is.
an IA system is a denitrifying septic system. So a septic system that removes nitrogen more than your Title V, which doesn't remove nitrogen. So that's sort of the wrap up.
See, if you do the same thing with sewers in that area, you get 7,000 kilos.
Exactly. Because it goes to zero, assuming out of watershed.
Yeah.
or oysters, or whatever. Shellfish can do it.
So
Okay.
it's, in some ways, it's the same comparison as oyster pond. Unless you go really creative and get a big grant from the EPA and convince them that they could actually do something really innovative, and convince them in Concom to figure out how to do it with PRB in or next to the river.
Well,
Without having
floating
side
solar
effects.
Okay, well, we're going to come to the PRB issue shortly, which,
right. The MEP study says that like 60%, you have to have 60% reduction of nitrogen in Great Pond. Okay, so the river is going to be a tough thing to handle unless we do stuff upstream with wastewater inflows. So, but 60% can be managed downstream through these various methods that we're applying. So the river might be a tougher nut to crack
Right.
than trying to deal with the lower watershed, and in a way. But there might be some things, some interventions upstream that could be done cost effectively. And then I just did look up the Beckley report, and it says specifically, just so that people can check that, this is on page, just a minute, I'll get it, page something, page, I don't know, it's under section 5.2
Okay.
on a nitrogen.
9.
Page 9.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see, I've lost it. Where is it? It says, yeah, I can just read it here quickly if I can get to it again. It's sort of getting, oh, here we go. Okay, here it is. It says, basically, it says this. The flux was estimated considering the specific discharge, also known as the Darcy velocity of groundwater, and a representational cross-sectional area of the aquifer, 5,000 feet long by 50 feet deep. Okay? The estimated mass flux through this cross-sectional area, 5,000 feet long by 50 feet deep, is approximately 140 kilograms per year. That's just based on this very preliminary data set that we have. But we should, we'll see what more comes. And if this is the case, it could mean that actually dealing with, well, I don't know, we'll have to see what comes.
yeah, more is coming.
Yeah, but this is, yeah, we're getting data. So what I'm saying is that the other is could be off. Okay, great.
Okay, Great Pond Watershed Review.
Yeah, so the other thing I wanted to say, just Jerry mentioned that the costing information may not be, that's in MVP is probably not perfect.
It's not ready.
The costing
Okay,
information
well,
is
we
ready, but
didn't-
the nitrogen
We
is.
didn't have any today anyway.
No,
so-
just,
Right.
but MVP proved to be a pretty good tool for estimating loads.
Well, it does seem to be, at least the few experiments where you compared it to something, it came pretty close.
Except for the real data.
Well,
Well, that was one
Well, it's like
data,
shellfish
one
dying.
data
I
point.
know, but that's.
Let's
what
say
we
all the
have.
shellfish
That's
die.
what
I
we have
think
until we
your
get
point,
more.
your point has been made, and you've already agreed that more data is required to make
Okay,
any
good.
judgments.
Okay, good.
So,
All right, I know, but we're getting off.
I want to make a comment about the Great Pond watershed review in the context of all of the estuaries.
yeah.
The 208 plan has been approved by the state, and part of what is going to be required of every town on the Cape is that any estuaries that are impaired, that have too much nitrogen in the estuary, the town is going to need to come up with some kind of plan for each one of those estuaries. So I think that the work that we've done in reviewing all of these various water bodies over the last 8 months, it is going to feed into that, so that it's not just a wild guess. We have some.
How does that differ from the CWMP?
The CWMPs become specific plans that the town basically says, this is what it's going to cost. Cost is a key piece. The town is going to proceed to fund it. We're still talking 10,000 feet level. What's the package you could put together that would solve this particular estuary's problem or that?
Essentially
You're
what
saying
we're
the
doing
208
right now.
requires us to get more specific than
No.
the
To get this specific.
To get to this
This
level of
level, right.
specificity.
And as-
Right, which is more than we've had before.
And as what Paul, Paul mentioned, we don't have to do anything, but it's good that we're doing this. The county, as of July, is going to develop a plan for each watershed, and it's going to be a hybrid plan. You were there, Matt, right?
Yeah.
So if we do nothing, they're going to do something, but hopefully we'll be able to feed them, so they should come up with in the same ballpark, but they're going forward on their own.
Yeah, if the towns aren't participating, they're in trouble. They're going to get handed a
Yeah,
plan.
they're going to run a model and say,
Yeah.
this is what it is, do you agree with it?
Right.
Right.
What's the time frame?
July. It's in the back of the letter I sent.
It's due by next July.
It's coming July.
I think the,
Well-
yeah,
This is October.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
July
that's
2016.
that's the draft.
Or June, something
The
like that.
208 says it has to be filed by September of 2016.
2000.
We got some time.
We're not-
But we're gonna
we're not worried.
lead that, not follow, I
Let's
think.
hope so.
Of course. Great Pond Watershed Review. Okay, well, but the bad news, I guess, is if you did everything to get the nitrogen out of the immediate vicinity of below 28, you still haven't solved your problem, because of the Coonamessett River is such a large contributor
Yeah.
that, and that is not something you can deal with in any way
Well,
that we
that's not-
figured out yet.
That's not quite true, Eric. I mean, if we use the numbers which we just developed,
Yeah.
and you sewer the lower watershed, you
Yeah.
take out the 7,000, which gets you to 12.
But that's sewering the lower
But you
watershed.
could put
That's-
INA systems throughout the watersheds.
I will tell you that there are many pieces of property in the lower watershed where you could not install an IA system. There's simply, the lots are too
Yeah,
small.
we're not going to get that one
So-
today, but you're absolutely right.
I mean,
So you could still use oysters to soak up the stuff that's coming down from the river, some of it.
some of it.
Some of it.
Well, we had an estimate of how much.
The problem with the river is it comes in at one point, the upper narrow end.
At 9 million
And if you
gallons
put
a
your
day.
oysters down where you have space to put the oysters, they don't do anything for that little place. If somebody decides
We need a
that
filter.
little place matters,
Right.
you have to catch it upstream of that.
It's a
Well,
work
he
in
did have it
progress, but
upstream.
This is where we are today on that one. Any other comments or questions on the CA's presentation, which was usually good quality?
Thank you.
Acapesca drilling update.
All right, I gotta take notes.
You're gonna.
I'm gonna take hand
Taking
notes.
notes.
Hidden one, well trigger.
Right. Well, the Shorewood Association, which owns land farther south, put this little sign up at the edge of Shorewood Drive, and so it's a nice little label. for the additional work that was done, just for the audience. About a year ago, we put in some initial wells about a third of the way down Acapesca Peninsula on roads off Shorewood and on Shorewood, and got some interesting but rather challenging groundwater data, and concluded that we needed to come more towards the head of the peninsula and put in some additional wells. This work is being done by MT Environmental, and Jim Begley is the point person that's coordinating the project. So some initial wells were put in this spring, and then once we got the water levels, we decided where to put 3 key wells, which is what have just gone in a week ago. And that's what we're going to show in these next slides. There actually is a drill rig through, you can just barely see a man in yellow. So there's a drill rig. This is in the heart of the property, which is roughly rectangular, running north-south it's on the west side of Shorewood, and it goes right to the edge of Great Pond. So see if you can give me the next slide. This is an example of the drill rig. The last one that we showed you was in a van. This one is on tracks, and so it can get into the interior of the property, and it's able to work its way around trees. So as long as you don't have a lot of brush, it works very well. We had an excellent drilling session. They'd scheduled 4 days, and they got it done in 3. They are driving what they call a probe down, and at this area, they went down 70 feet below ground surface to install this particular well. Okay, next. This one is the well that is on the corner of Shorewood and Route 28. At that location, the U.S. Geological Survey has partnered with us. We paid for the drill to create the hole, but they built the monitoring well inside, and the USGS has developed this marvelous technique of being able to sample every 2 feet. In this case, it's going to be every 4 feet. And those poles have little ports, and each port has a little tube. You can see a few tubes on the right. They're all color-coded. And so we actually have 15 water sampling points over a profile of about 70 feet. And it therefore gives you a very clear picture of whatever constituents you're looking at. And in our case, we're interested in nitrates, ammonia, and nitrite. But they will be collecting salinity and iron and a whole standard suite of chemicals and minerals when they do their sampling. So the USGS was on site, and once the well was drilled, they built this 15-port sampling, and that's why it's called multi-level sampling. Next slide. That's just another picture of the geoprobe, and they're gradually feeding the pipes now down the borehole to all the way down, as I said, 70 feet. There you can see all the little individual tubes, as I said, color-coded, and then they attach it to an instrument that they've built that has a pump on it, and which draws up the water. The final installation has a sort of a box around it, and then concrete. The top of the well casing is that gray thing that you see, and the tubes are all coiled inside, and then it's locked. I'm not sure whether there's a picture of the lock. Let's see what the next one is. No.
Driving away.
But basically, you end up flush-mounted and nothing with this is set in concrete and locked. So is this the next slide?
Yeah, I'm just writing at the same time, sorry.
Okay. This is back in the center of the property, and that was where we took a soil core all the way down 70 feet to see what kind of medium that we would be dealing with. And what we found was that it's what they call medium sand. So it's a very good conduit for groundwater. You can see that they encountered 2 bands of iron staining. We did not get to saltwater, the saltwater-freshwater interface at either of these locations. So we're even at 70 feet below ground surface, we were still above that interface. So these bands are something else. And at the very end of this core, they did find a little gravel. Next slide. And there you can see the gravel.
Little gravel.
The diameter you're looking at is about 2 inches here, so that gives you an idea of what the gravel looked like.
And they picked up a billiard ball.
And then you've got the location, so I'm just
Okay,
going to
yes,
pull
go
up
ahead. if you show.
that.
Right, we have one other slide.
Oops. It's in a different place.
Okay, so that the three stars are the approximate locations of the new wells. Thank you for coming, Sherry.
Thank you.
Yes.
And thank you for changing the time.
Oh, this works for you?
Oh, much better.
Oh, good.
Terrific. We'll do it again.
Okay. The wells will need to be surveyed in, but he's put stars at approximately where they're located. The green bars on the right that say 3.9, 6.6, 3.3, and 3.2 is an estimated groundwater level, water table level, based on the former data. This will be updated once the new wells are surveyed in. And in 2 weeks, the week of October 26th, they will do all the water quality sampling collections. And they'll be doing that in conjunction with USGS.
Any comments or questions?
Did you want to point out where Begley's first name was, as Ron was concerned?
It actually is to the south, so it's off the bottom of the picture.
So it's a new area.
This is, compared to the report that he did a week ago, yes, it was significantly farther north than the original groundwater drilling that we did.
And the original, to put it in context, was the flow was basically not north-south, it was east-west, and it was at a very slow rate.
Yes.
It was like a half a foot per year, and at a very low nitrogen concentration, which is the numbers that Ron was just referring to.
That initial snapshot turned up things we didn't expect. Very slow groundwater direction, not as we were expecting, and low nitrates.
It may be characteristic of the lower, as you move down, that is a phenomenon.
Exactly.
And then depending on how close you are to the saltwater interface too, because it may be that as it hits that, it's in an anoxic area. And we'll have, there could be denitrification, but we'll see. We still need to do, I think, more sampling further down, depending on what these results are.
Of course.
Yes.
We should say in general that there was no data, zero, on groundwater quality or characteristics for anything on the Athabasca Peninsula, Davisville Peninsula, and moving on eastward. The only place that we had any information was from the mid-90s for an area on seacoast shores. So it was obvious that if we were going to look at a permeable reactive barrier as a possible technology, we had to know more about the hydrology of these peninsulas.
And specifically where you want to put the barrier, because you really don't care if it's better or worse.
Right.
You just have to describe right where you're putting it.
Right.
Then you have a snapshot and a pilot of this is what this type of PRB can do.
Can do, that's right. It's very site-specific.
Any other comments or questions?
Can we go back to see a slide of the different solution quantities for Great Pond? Because it's relevant here, for our overall plan. Or if we can't, I can just say it in vague words. But this is fascinating. But it seems to me we need to start thinking at least a little bit in terms of dollars, because you're talking about a very experimental thing here that I think you'll see from Sia's numbers as at best going to treat like 10% or less of the load in Great Pond. And that's like having a commute to work or any task, and you have to do 90% of it with some relatively, compared to this, conventional technology, either oysters or IAs or sewers or whatever.
Say eco toilets.
Or eco toilets. And then, do you really want to go out on all the risk and expense of something very experimental for only 1,400 kilograms when you're having to deal with 12,000 total?
Virginia.
Well, I understand his point of view, and I think it's a very valid question. I have not felt that it was not time to answer it until we had a better knowledge of where the groundwater is moving rapidly. I do not expect that the snapshot that we got a third of the way down the Athabasca Peninsula is going to be the same as it is here. I think you are going to see higher concentrations of nitrate, and you certainly are going to see greater velocity of water, groundwater flow. So if I'm wrong, then he's right. We probably won't pursue this. But until I have that hard data, and I would say part of the scope of work was to take samples, as I said, in 2 weeks. But included in the scope of work is another round of samples next spring, so that we don't have just one data point for all of these places. Then I think we'll be able to make a reasoned judgment about the questions you've raised.
But the other piece is the cost.
That's all I'm saying.
If it costs a very small amount to reduce that amount of kilograms, then it's worth it. But we don't know the cost yet.
I'm just saying,
Right.
we're running the danger of getting unbalanced and having lots of technical data and very little cost data.
Well,
It makes more sense to sort of run them together.
Well, I would say we actually spent a fair amount of money developing cost data, which is what CDM did, and we also have cost data from the county. But no one really knows, because an ideal PRB location has yet to be presented by any town. So we're leading the pack here to say, it looks like we really could install one here.
And also that 50-foot depth that I assume
Yes.
is not conservative. I mean, that's a challenge. And I only picked the big one so that no one would, if I picked 25, someone would say, oh, well, you could really go to 50. This way, I'm on the side where the other person has to concede.
Yes.
And you've got to come down to a shallower depth and then admit you're not getting as much nitrogen.
Okay, 2 comments on that. First of all, I wasn't going to argue with your assumptions at the time that you developed them, but you wrote trench depth. Trench means dig down and backfill with something.
There are other ways to do it.
There are other ways to install a permeable reactive barrier without actually trenching. And that we haven't had a full-blown discussion about that, and it's not pertinent yet. But the point is, there are other technologies out there where 50 feet would not be a problem.
Well, I think it's fair to say that what we did learn from our fairly expensive earlier study was that trenching was not practical.
Yes.
And that if anything was going to work, it was going to be injection.
Right.
And I do think, in going through these alternatives, we need to have a proof of concept. No one else in Barnstable County has got a site. We now think we've identified a site which there's a reasonable probability that we may be able to make this work. And if we can get a grant to do that and show in proof of concept that either does or it doesn't work, I think that's what we're trying to do now.
Oh, if you can get a grant,
Yeah, that is the next question.
then it's funny money. Who cares? If somebody else's money we're spending, sure, let's do it. But
That's the premise right now. Is
Yeah,
that
okay.
EPA has said show us some sites,
Right.
and if they like our site, we're presuming the next step will be,
I'm all
they will
for it.
show us the money.
That's fine. I'm just saying, if it was our money,
Right.
and then you have to look at the choice between spending it to see if this works, or, just as an example, spending it to get, say, an IA system that's 2/3 the cost of the existing, or 30% more effective than the existing.
Right.
Because then that would apply to a much bigger number than the 1,400.
Yeah, fair enough. Any other comments, questions?
No, I was just going to say that I think that basically that both, that what you just said a moment ago before we got into this, a little bit of a tangent, but is that I think you're right, and I think that the Begler report could be right as well, is that it could be moving faster and higher concentration where these measurements are taken, and that it could be slower and lower concentration further down because of the nature of the groundwater and interacting with the saltwater wedge and things. We'll see, but I think that both are possibly correct. We don't know.
The other piece about the lower section is that there may be these little pencils emanating from individual septic tanks as opposed to sort of a big wave that's coming down.
Upper floor.
And the whole design may be different.
Have we had any, do we know if Ken Foreman has gotten any results yet from his work on the Little Pond wells?
Haven't heard.
No. Okay, any other comments or questions about the Akapesky drilling update? All right, reports to members and staff. I got a couple of things, which is Matt Charette is our new member. The selectmen voted him in, and he would have been here tonight, but he apparently left last night for Japan. And he will be at the next meeting. He's a groundwater guy, and we're very happy to have him. APCC has been given the preliminary approval for the proposal that they brought in front of us at the last meeting around road runoff. And they have asked if we would send a letter of support, and since road runoff has been on our list of things to pursue for a long time, unless there's some objection, then I think I'd be glad to send them a letter of support.
Yeah.
So moved.
So, well, is there, okay.
Consensus.
Consensus, right.
Agenda? Can we do something?
Okay, so we'll do that.
Wait, was that on the agenda? I'm just wondering.
No, it wasn't, but we're going to do it anyway. Just because I think I heard a consensus that sending a letter would be okay.
Oh.
Is there any objection?
No, I'm just saying that there's open
information
meeting
coming
law
up.
issues, but that's, you're
So
the
the
chair.
last-
We got the request yesterday,
Oh, yeah.
and
Oh, we got a request from them to write a letter of
Yep.
support.
Unforeseen information.
I haven't seen it. I think it's a
I
good
went
idea.
through the minutes too, the last meeting, and there was a sense that the committee was supportive of their presentation.
Yeah.
To-
yeah, it's mother and apple pie. We're for dealing with road runoff. The other piece, I think, was that Jerry might have.
I think Matt might want to report out on
Okay, that's right.
Yeah,
The walkway
yeah.
thing, of course.
Well, Sia and Jerry were there at the Cape Cod Water Collaborative meeting,
Actually, to
and
the enterprise, this is actually news.
we,
You're not going to get a story out of the drilling, but you will get a story out of this.
Right.
You got a shellfish story too, which
Well,
is,
that's true.
this is a good one.
they were considering the project for the Quashnet-Munikis estuary river system, which Brian Howes had proposed a follow-up study of worth about $45,000. So they discussed it for quite a while. Sia made a brief presentation, and Sue Moran, our select woman, spoke up in favor of it, as well as a number of other people around the table, and they decided to fund us $20,000, fund that proposal $20,000 with the contingency that the project is it the project or the money? I can't remember.
The money is
The money from the towns,
Mashpee
Mashpee and Falmouth, is
Forthcoming?
put out by June 1st, I think, or June 15th, I think it was. So they voted unanimously to do that. And I'd also like to report that the Citizens for the Protection of Wacoit Bay voted the preceding Tuesday, this last Tuesday, to ante up $2,500.
That
So,
comes out of our share.
what?
That comes out of our
That will
share.
come out of the towns, yeah. That will work towards the town's share.
Out of the Falmouth half? Okay.
Or, it, depending on how Mashpee and Falmouth decide to do it, it will come out of that share. We also had word from one of the members of the Mashpee Environmental Coalition, MEC, that they want to help us fund the project as well. So probably another small grant, I'm thinking, but
And the decision on Monday night, we may know as early as Monday. Mashpee's voting on the town article for a very large amount of money.
well, that was the town's share, Mashpee town's share.
But the idea was that allocated money because the wording of
Exactly,
the article
yeah.
It could be used for this.
could be
Yes.
used for this. If not, it would be spring of next year before they could
Right.
appropriate that money.
You want to talk to Matt after the meeting,
Yeah.
because he's the point man on this, but the big picture is this: Falmouth and Mashpee share Wacoit Bay.
Right.
And one of the pieces of the nitrogen problem in Wacoit Bay is this particular estuary. Mashpee for a long time has been saying to Falmouth, it's in Falmouth, but it takes a lot of groundwater from
So the
Mashpee.
208 plan?
And that's not
Yeah.
the 208.
No, not share responsible.
No, leave that piece aside for the moment.
It's the concept of sharing.
That's right,
It's
it's
a
the
shape-
concept.
The premise here is that the watershed is affected by both towns, and therefore both towns should be interested in this particular study. We went to the collaborative, Matt went to the collaborative with SIA, and they agreed to put up $20,000 toward the $45,000 cost. The other half is going to have to come from the towns and
Various
these
environmental
private
groups.
So the premise here is that two private groups and two towns are working together on a common problem in a shared watershed, and that's a very big deal. So,
And the county hopes to use this as an example for other communities to follow, in addition to the scientific benefits of this, which we don't want to get into this now.
Do we have a town timeline on when we need to raise our $9,000 or whatever?
we can put it on the agenda at our next meeting and vote it out of our money.
Yeah.
That
So we actually have,
We should put it on the agenda for November.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Actually, on my list was, let's talk about our next meeting.
The 31st work for everybody?
Okay.
Because the 6th is right after that, and two meetings 1 week apart. It's not,
Eric doesn't have quite the right, it's the 29th.
29th.
You're looking in front. Thursday, the 29th, there are 5 Thursdays in October.
Right.
And if we do it on our regular first Thursday of the month, which would be the 5th, it's right before town meeting, and there's precinct meetings going on. So if everybody's okay, we would just meet
29th.
on the 29th,
2 weeks from today.
2 weeks from today at 3:30.
There's a precinct meeting that night, right?
Oh,
I might
Well,
be.
there may be, but
We don't
But
meet
we're
at night,
meeting at
so-
3:30.
we don't meet at night, so it won't.
Oh, right, that's right.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So 3:30 on the 29th.
3:30 on the 29th.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, any other reports of members and staff? We do have a report from one staff.
I guess some will be happy, some will be sad, but I'm going to retire as of January 9th. Ray and I have been talking about this for about a year, when the best period of time would be, and we're about halfway through the construction, so you could say the minutia administrivia has been sort of settled, and the other thing, it'd be a good time to bring in a new superintendent to help with the optimization at the treatment plant, because, that would be probably the second, be the single most important goal now that we've got this part done, is getting the treatment plant running, being optimized, and that will comply with the settlement agreement, which will soon to be signed. So January 9th looked like it was a good time. I looked at the schedule that the county's going to do next year, and I said, gee whiz, I hate to miss all these fights.
You can still
You can still
participate, Jerry.
come.
No, I don't know. Once you're out, you're out.
Jerry, could I ask a question?
Yeah.
Could you give us a little brief update on where we are with the Site 7 development?
Site 7, well, it's basically digging in sand, so that's going very well. We hit the bottom of the pit, the bottom of the infiltration gallery. We're starting to do the berms around it. That was only going to be about a year's worth of work. I don't know if we began to lay any piping yet, I can't remember. There's no electrical that's needed out there. So, I mean,
But it's well underway.
oh yeah, it's well underway. I guess I did want to, took out a lot of good sized boulders as to be anticipated. All this rain that we got, despite inappropriate letters,
Yes.
water went right through it. Yeah.
Well, not the first time.
Yes.
Is there any more flow data
Oh,
on the wastewater treatment facility? You put in the new meters, and
oh, I
another month has gone by.
yes, and I forgot to ask, see it, but I think we're probably still doing around,
You mean
aiming, what I had estimated before,
It's
400,000
on,
gallons. But
it's on our agenda. We will get the numbers Monday night.
Yeah.
So we,
Yeah, I mean, call me up tomorrow. The numbers are what they are.
Well, let me say, you have been a man of many strong opinions, and I've been living with you for about 7 years now between the study group and this committee, and you've never been shy about sharing them, and we've butted heads, and I think everyone in this room has probably butted heads at one point or another, but I have to say, your heart has always been with the town of Falmouth, and everything you wanted to do has been what you thought was in the best interest of the town of Falmouth, and the town of Falmouth should appreciate that. And we
Thank you. I'm sure they do.
Well, congratulations, Jerry.
Thank
You'll be a lot less stressful than
Well, I gotta see. I've worked more years than I've been married, so I gotta write this down.
You don't want to mess with that.
Too late, she's watching the show, Jerry.
The secret to a successful marriage might be not
A happy wife.
That's right. Well,
Volunteer work.
there you go. Well, the town has some big shoes to fill.
Yes, they
Yeah.
do indeed.
I got a brief piece of administration. Since Matt Sherratt's coming, we want to make a placard, a name placard for him. We probably want to update ours because they're small, maybe make them bigger. Yours has coffee stains. Would it be appropriate to take some Article 17 money, probably under $100, and redo the name tags?
I think Ron will tell you it would be appropriate to put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
It's up to you, you're the chair.
You know, vote it at the next meeting?
Okay.
All right.
I mean, that's money.
You want to, I'm sorry. I would think that although we don't normally pay for registration fees, and I don't see us ask for her registration fee at that conference, if it's over $300, may be an area to consider at the next meeting.
Fair enough. We can put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
I know you didn't.
Sure.
But I mean, sometimes people forget all the stuff you do.
yep, I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
You're a speaker, so you don't have to pay.
I have to pay.
Oh, you will?
Yeah, everybody has, yeah.
Oh,
I
really?
organize the panel, I have to pay.
Really?
I was supposed to do a tour of the Little Pond thing too, but the bags disappeared, so that's off the.
Relays, wait for no conference.
You can do a tour of West Falmouth
Matt, are
Harbor.
you going?
Yeah.
Are you going?
Yeah. Interested in the topic.
That's just like 3 days. I think they should have had it.
Well, I'm not going to go all three.
I think it should have been a 2-day conference.
I might just go for mine.
All right. Any other reports of members and staff? Okay, we have minutes of the prior meeting, which were sent around by email several days ago, and everybody's seen them. Is there any amendments to them or suggestions for changes or additions?
I didn't get any.
If not, a motion to adopt them as presented will be appreciated.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
One abstention.
One abstention. You weren't here.
You weren't, yeah,
It was
I can't.
It was a sailing day.
Yeah. No, it was it was a family day.
Family day,
Yeah, out of town, family.
Okay. Matt has a motion for us.
I move we adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, second,
Second.
all in favor?
All right.
All opposed? We have it. Thank you.
All right. Ron can make it home before dark.
Steve, did that slide give you the information you wanted?
I've got lights, so.
No.